horror inside a local newsroom in the United States. A gunman opens fire, killing, injuring, and sparking a police response spanning several cities. Mass shootings in the United States have become all too common. But tonight, this targeted attack on journalists has put other American newsrooms on edge. We're following the latest developments.
And we're digging into the dangers journalists face. We speak with a Mexican reporter behind bars in the U.S., fearing for his life for what he uncovered. On this Thursday night, a troubling question: has the truth itself become a target? This is The National.
It is a rare month in the U.S. when a mass shooting doesn't shake a community or grab headlines. But tonight, it's different. The community shaken writes the headlines.
Myself and the medical director responding to the active shooter at 888 Bestgate with TAC team.
Several shots have been fired, at least 10 shots.
A man armed with a shotgun fired into a newsroom in Annapolis, Maryland, offices of a local newspaper.
What I can tell you, what I can confirm is around 2:40, we were called to 888 Bestgate Road in Annapolis for a report of an active shooter.
Details trickled out by the hour. At least 5 people are dead. Police say the suspect used smoke bombs in his attack, and he's now in custody. For more on how the shooting unfolded and what we know about who's behind it, here's Paul Hunter.
Yet again in this country, first responders race to the scene even as the event unfolds.
The person is still shooting.
Police dispatchers hearing from those who got inside within seconds, desperate to find the shooter.
Okay, so we got about 4 bodies down inside.
Come on, we still do not have the suspect. 10-4, suspect is still at large.
And yet again, those images of Americans led away from the scene of yet another mass shooting. This one at the offices of the Annapolis Capital-Gazette newspaper in Maryland.
I saw a guy holding a gun. The door of the Capital-Gazette had been blown to pieces. It was in shattered pieces all on the carpet. And this guy was holding what looked like a big shotgun and moving across the entrance of the Capital-Gazette office, pointing the gun deeper into the office.
Gazette crime reporter Phil Davis tweeted, "There's nothing more terrifying than hearing multiple people get shot while you're under your desk and then hear the gunman reload." Police say a white male with a ponytail, said to have been found cowering under a desk, was arrested with a long gun nearby.
10-4, suspect in custody, correct? That is correct.
He was taken into custody by...
Here's a look at what else we're working on tonight on The National. For Emilio Gutierrez Soto, returning to Mexico would be certain death, but the U.S. has denied his asylum claim. We take you inside the detention center where he has been held for months.
Plus, a follow-up to our CBC News investigation into millions of missing prescription drugs. Tonight, the dangerous path addicts can take when pharmacies clamp down.
But first, this weekend, Canada will fire back against U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum. And CBC News has learned the Trudeau government will announce tomorrow an aid package for industries hardest hit in this trade dispute. Katie Simpson now on what we can expect.
Millions of Canadians will be on the water for the holiday-long weekend. But those who work in the boating industry will be far from relaxed. Retailers are about to find out if they're going to be caught in the middle of the Canada-U.S. trade fight.
The dealers are just frantic as lead up to July the 1st. In fact, we've been in full gear for the last 3 weeks trying to figure out how we're going to deal with this.
The price of an American-built boat may spike as of Sunday when Canada's retaliatory tariffs officially kick in. Tomorrow, the Foreign Affairs Minister will be in Hamilton, Ontario, known as Steeltown, to announce the finalized list of American goods that will be hit with the new duties. CBC News has learned some of the items on the preliminary list announced last month have been removed after industries lobbied the government, arguing the tariffs will do more harm than good. But a senior source cautioned not everyone is going to be happy. The announcement will also include details about a compensation package for companies and workers hurt by the dispute.
To me, there has to be a significant amount of money, and I wish I could put a dollar figure on it. The other thing, there has to be some assurances that workers will have access to the unemployment insurance.
Industry officials say the package is expected to include hundreds of millions of dollars in loan guarantees, plus expanded employment insurance benefits that can continue to be used for however long this standoff lasts.
So Katie Simpson joins us from Ottawa. Katie, we all understand a former prime minister is heading to Washington to meet with some senior Trump officials. What do we really know?
Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper has meetings planned next week with Larry Kudlow, who is a senior Trump advisor who deals with economic issues, including NAFTA and trade. And he's also expected to meet with John Bolton, who is a national security advisor. Now, the current Prime Minister's office, Justin Trudeau's office, did not find out about this meeting until of a strange phone call from the White House. Yesterday, the embassy, Canada's embassy in Washington, got a phone call, ring, ring, hello, it's the White House, and they wanted more details about the Prime Minister's visit next week. Well, that caught officials at the Canadian Embassy off guard, who called Ottawa to say, hey, are you guys coming to Washington next week? Why didn't you tell us? Prime Minister's office in Ottawa is like, we're not coming to Washington. What are you talking about? They go back to the White House. They met former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. So this meeting seems to have caught the current Prime Minister's office a little off guard.
Okay, Katie Simpson in Ottawa. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
And this weekend, current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be skipping Canada Day festivities on Parliament Hill. Instead, he will be on the road, focusing on the looming trade war between Canada and the United States. He'll visit Leamington in southern Ontario, meeting workers who produce Made in Canada French's ketchup. Trudeau will also fly to Regina, meeting steelworkers hard hit by President Trump's tariffs. And provincial and territorial health ministers are in Winnipeg for 2 days of meetings. Tomorrow, they'll be joined by the federal health minister, and they've all got one thing on their minds.
What funding role will Ottawa be taking? That's the question. We want to provide more services. We understand what's at stake. We understand the needs. We also live on a daily basis the limitations that we have in our capacity to deliver those services.
Now, some of that money would combat opioid addictions. Yesterday, we brought you a CBC investigation about highly addictive drugs being stolen from pharmacies and the efforts to stop that from happening. But as health reporter Vic Adopia learned, those efforts could actually have dire consequences for drug users.
It's a daily tribute a mother wishes she didn't have to make.
It's something you say to yourself all the time, that this could be the last time you see them, but you don't really believe it. You really and truly don't believe it.
Her son Scott's opioid abuse began with a routine prescription for painkillers after having his wisdom teeth out. The medication ran out, so he turned to the street. As the grip of addiction tightened, he lost his partner, his home, and his plans to be a chef in Calgary. Then came his final attempt at treatment.
He was there for 3 months, successfully completed the program, and relapsed within 12 hours and was gone. And then he came back.
A suspected mix of heroin and fentanyl ended her son's life 2 years ago. Tantardini says Scott should have had access to a safe replacement for street drugs.
People who, never touched a drug before, who are addicted to opioids, and they're dying because they have to get their fix.
Deciphering the trends in opioid use and abuse in Canada is complex. As we found out, thefts and losses from pharmacies are going up, even though the total quantity of opioids being prescribed is declining. And at the same time, the number of people dying from opioid-related overdoses has hit an alarming high, suggesting the demand for hard drugs in Canada is unrelenting.
When that supply goes, you're left with a much less safer supply of illegal drugs.
British Columbia's former chief medical officer was at the forefront of the opioid crisis, which saw a surge in overdoses fueled by fentanyl.
Some of those people who've had their prescriptions cut back have moved to the streets, but to the degree that prescription opioids were being diverted to the streets, they've been replaced by much more dangerous and toxic illicit opioids.
Health Canada says it's tightening monitoring of pharmacies by auditing them regularly. In addition to doctors cutting back opioid prescribing, the government also wants to restrict the marketing of prescription painkillers. This pharmacist and researcher says the changes are only one part of the equation.
I think we have to have a multifaceted approach to try to address both the supply and the demand sides of this, and we're just trying to address the supply constantly because they're the easiest policies to in place.
Since Scott's death, Health Canada has loosened access to prescription heroin and methadone. Hard to say if that would have saved him.
It's like leaks in the Grand Canyon, and, we're putting bubble gum in the holes and hoping it holds.
Sandy Tantardini has started a support group for other moms dealing with the same pain. She also honors her son's memory in other ways, such as this tree planted with some of his ashes and this tattoo. So Scott's always with her, just like the grief. Vic Adopia, CBC News, Toronto.
As Vic pointed out, the demand for drugs won't simply ease off with a clampdown on prescription opioids. Addiction doesn't care about policy change. In fact, clamping down on another opioid may have helped open the door for the fentanyl crisis in the first place. Back in 2012, Ontario led other Canadian provinces in pulling OxyContin from pharmacy shelves. It was replaced with a new version called Oxy Neo that was billed as tamper-resistant and harder to abuse. But look at the rise of fentanyl since that happened. In 2012, 217 street drug samples tested positive for fentanyl. Since then, the numbers have basically doubled each year. By 2017, more than 6,400 samples contained fentanyl. That pattern continues in 2018. And just look at how those figures overlap with these. In 2012, fentanyl was only detected in 4% of fatal drug overdoses in British Columbia, one of the hardest hit provinces. By 2015, it was almost a third. By last year, 84%. This year's early figures are tracking the same way.
It is a humanitarian crisis that's dividing an entire continent. Tonight in Europe, there are more signs that differences over migrants could tear apart the EU.
The biggest priority in this moment to protect our external border.
Today, leaders from 28 European countries gathered in Brussels for a two-day summit. Topping the agenda, what to do about all the asylum seekers still crossing the Mediterranean from North Africa, and how to control the migration of refugees already within the EU. An agreement to strengthen EU borders was about to be announced, but at the last minute, a news conference was cancelled because Italy's new populist prime minister refused to sign on since his demands weren't met. Trouble is, it's not just the EU's future at risk. As Margaret Evans reports, the migrant crisis could take down Germany's government as well.
Munich, the Bavarian capital, and a downpour worthy of the country's mood. And you can take your pick. Germany's spectacular tumble out of the World Cup in the early stages, or the political fortunes of Angela Merkel and the European Union. This morning, the German Chancellor appeared before the Bundestag in Berlin, saying immigration could be a make or break issue for the EU. Heckled by members of the far right and under pressure over immigration from within her own conservative faction, Merkel said she has no regrets over opening the door to refugees 3 years ago. In hindsight, she said, I still believe that was right. Bamberg, north of Munich, a World Heritage Site once home to the Enlightenment. The demonstrators out in support of asylum seekers say they're still trying to shine a light.
Right now we see a policy shift in Europe, and we deem it to be necessary.
Ricardo Schreck is a social worker who helps migrant kids in German schools with integration.
We can see actually that right now countries like Italy and Malta, they are trying to compete who cares less.
Italy's decision to refuse aid ships carrying rescued asylum seekers permission to dock is what's been driving the current crisis, putting pressure on its EU partners. Malta allowed one ship turned away by Italy to dock yesterday, but says it's a one-off. Unlike many in Germany, Schreck says his country should do more.
We have economic power and political powerhouse of the European Union.
But it is a power that's waned somewhat, along with that of the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, struggling to navigate some of the forces lined up against her. And so back to the gloom and a horizon that remains murky on two fronts, despite the gathering on migration in Brussels, or perhaps because of it.
And that's why it is existential for the European Union, but it certainly is for the German Chancellor as well. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Munich.
And several other stories we're keeping a close watch on live on tonight's National, including the arrest of almost 600 protesters in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of people, most of them women, flooded the Senate office building on Capitol Hill to protest the president's so-called zero-tolerance stance on immigration. Many wrapped themselves in foil blankets, similar to those given to migrant children when they were separated from their families at the U.S. border. It took police about 90 minutes to clear everyone out. Also, a victory tonight for Muslim women in Quebec who wear the niqab. A law was supposed to kick in on Sunday that would require them to show their faces when accessing public services. But today, a Quebec judge suspended that new law until it can be heard in court because he says it appears to violate charter rights. And the Queen pulled out of a public event today because Buckingham Palace said she was feeling under the weather. The 92-year-old was set to attend a special service at St. Paul's Cathedral, but the Duke of Kent went in her place. The palace doesn't seem alarmed by any of it, though. It says the Queen is not seeing a doctor currently and will spend the weekend in Windsor, as usual.
Still ahead on the National. No more teachers, no more books. You know how the rest of it goes. The joy over the end of school in most of the country is our moment of the day.
Plus, after an early exit in 2014, England's footy fans are cautiously optimistic during a World Cup that seems to be anybody's game.
And you'll meet a Mexican journalist who's been sitting in a U.S. detention center for months after a judge denied his asylum claim. Deportation would mean death, but the wait in prison is taking its toll.
Yo he pensado que es mejor enfrentar en un momento dado la muerte en México que seguir en este lugar en donde estamos viviendo la espera de la muerte todos los días.
Totally solid, so they're all in place. Everybody moved up to a certain family. And that used to be more safer because it completes a circle of male and female. Even for myself, sometimes I'm reminded that I have to acknowledge my male spirit too, not only the female, even though the female is the important role in my life. And that was being true, I mimic my father's dancing there, and that's what I love doing, is dancing. So true. There's a lot more to putting on regalia and deciding where to go dance, because it's really sacred for me. This dress that I wear, it's a sacred healing dance, which was going around for centuries already, I guess, and do you get healing out of it? That always made your heart strengthen your heart. You feel your strength go out and do what's wrong, thank you. That's what my grandmother used to tell me. Because I'd asked her a question, and she said, well, what do you think? How do you feel in your heart? Is it right or is it wrong? I don't know if it's right. Okay, well, if it's right, it's wrong. If it's wrong, we'll find out. Here, it's really well accepted and neat. People don't judge you for who you are, your gender. It's the way you carry yourself and the sacredness that you're carrying. And people can see that, people can tell. So, how do they dance to people? People dance over people.
The Prime Minister of Belgium arrived at the EU summit bearing gifts for his British counterpart. He gave Theresa May a Belgium soccer jersey, a cheeky nod to today's World Cup match between his country and England. But he did not go away empty-handed, getting a Three Lions shirt in exchange. Ultimately, Belgium prevailed, 1-0. But both teams have qualified for the knockout round. Now, English soccer fans rarely need an excuse to get excited about the game. But after the team's bright start in Russia, they are taking their passion to a new level. Thomas Daigle explains.
So far, this has been the most unusual of English summers, with uncharacteristically nice weather and unexpected optimism about the national soccer team.
There is a bit more belief this time round that we can win, and because we have been winning.
Football is coming home. It's coming home. We've got this in the bag.
Only the most hardcore supporters would have believed that just a couple of weeks ago. In international soccer, the English have become all too accustomed to disappointment. This time, England's young squad already has 2 wins at a World Cup it could have missed altogether by no fault of its own. The nerve agent attack targeting a former Russian spy in Salisbury poisoned relations between London and Moscow, leading to calls for England to boycott Russia's World Cup. And that's not the only issue.
People of different ethnicities and LGBT fans are still particularly vulnerable to targeted violence, and as we said, England fans generally.
Yet thousands of those supporters are making the trip, and there's a sudden surge in bookings, with the English apparently emboldened by their team's success.
Specialist tour operators selling packages to the World Cup have seen a pretty significant increase in interest from England fans wanting to head off to Russia.
In London, the jolt of pride is hard to miss, with the English flag specially flying next to the Union Jack above the Prime Minister's office. Then, across town, there's this neighborhood, and there's no guessing who they're cheering for.
Problem is, all the shops have not foreseen this coming, so there isn't actually any flags in stock for anyone to buy.
Even with a narrow loss to Belgium, there's no dampening spirits here.
It's coming home.
England is off to the next round, and that's better than last time. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, London.
So after 2 weeks, group play is done. 16 teams remain. Welcome to the 2018 World Cup of Surprises. Germany, the defending champion, is already out, and some of the other big teams are underperforming.
You know, there is only one story at this World Cup, and it is the demise of Germany, and that is of seismic proportions. There is no rhyme or reason why Germany has stumbled in this World Cup, other than to say they just weren't good enough. They looked flat, they didn't look inspired, they didn't look creative, they looked vulnerable, like a lot of other teams. But Germany doesn't make these mistakes. It always shows up at every World Cup, everyone except this one. Argentina, well, they've already used their get-out-of-jail-free card. They very nearly lost and almost didn't make it out of the group stage. We were that close to losing both the finalists from 2014 in the pool stages this time round. With Germany gone, this is now a wide-open World Cup, and I'm talking about teams like Belgium, talking about teams like Uruguay, perhaps France, and Russia. Well, they are the hosts, and they haven't played badly either. Everybody knows that they don't have the strongest team, but equally everybody knows that hosts usually overperform when they are staging the World Cup.
The round of 16 begins on Saturday, with the first game being Argentina versus France. The winner advances to the quarterfinals.
Next on the National, rotting in detention when deportation means death. Meet the Mexican journalist stuck in limbo because the United States says it's safe for him to go home.
You'll be fine in Mexico because there is a program to protect journalists. I mean, your face immediately just screwed up. What do you make of that?
If he fears to be here, and the only protection he has is this program of the government is like useless. There are a lot of examples of how this program have failed.
He's on his way.
Damian Carson of Canmore is 24 years old.
At that age, most young adults are starting new careers and looking toward the future. But Carson's athletic career is just about over, and there's a big hole in his resume, a trip to the Winter Olympics.
I quit right after I'd had the best results of my career, and I couldn't afford to continue skiing, so.
Carson retired from the sport of Nordic combined 10 months ago, but he couldn't stay away. Carson's taking one last shot at his Olympic dream and several shots at a system that has rarely supported him.
It's been incredibly frustrating. You know, you go over to Europe and you're competing and you're beating skiers and you see them go home and, you know, they have a job in the Army where all they do is train and get a paycheck. So, you know, that's very frustrating. But, you know, it's part of being Canadian. What can you do? Just keep plugging away.
Carson says his living expenses are well over $1,000 a month. Most Canadian athletes competing internationally get $1,100 a month from the federal government. But athletes like Carson and others get nothing from the government because of inconsistent results.
It's an Olympic sport, but we haven't had anybody in the Olympics for so long. And I mean, again, a catch-22. You need the money to get someone to the Olympics, but you don't have anybody at the Olympics to get the money.
Chris Holland of Calgary has done remarkably well despite the lack of financial support. He finished third last weekend in a World Cup B event at Canada Olympic Park. Holland is the only Canadian competing regularly on the A circuit, but he's running out of chances to qualify for the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake.
I think it's difficult mostly because the pool of athletes we have is so much smaller than if you look at Norway or Finland or Germany. I mean, they have just such a large base athletes. They can pull out an athlete that's been training his whole life that's better than anybody here.
That's a common excuse for Canadian athletes competing in low-profile sports. But why is it that some other facilities left over from the Calgary Winter Games are producing good results? The Olympic Oval is the home of several world champions, including Katrina Lemay-Doan, an Olympic gold medalist in speed skating. Very few Canadians have ever been in a bobsleigh, but Pierre Lueders of Edmonton has also won a gold medal at the Olympics. Some experts say that it's easier to recruit and keep athletes in bobsleigh and speed skating. The Calgary Olympic Development Association gives money to every one of those sports. CODA hands out more than $7 million a year in facilities and program grants. CODA has just announced its next legacy program. It's an ambitious plan to expand Canada Olympic Park and invest more money in sports like ski jumping and Nordic combined.
If you used a simple cost-effectiveness rule, we'd all be playing soccer. You know, I mean, we wouldn't be involved in a lot of these sports, but the fact is that Canadians express themselves in different ways. And there are youngsters up there in the ski jump that have to fly. Here we have a ski jumping complex and a training environment next to a city or in a city of almost 1 million people. We think the raw material here is outstanding. And we think there are kids out there that want to jump.
Andy Osadets is one of those youngsters that loves to fly. He won't be 14 until April, but he's already been ski jumping for 5 years.
Like, we're rising up, and the younger guys here are really going to be the future of ski jumping.
Osadets is a member of Team 2010, a group of young athletes that has already had some success internationally. They have a European coach and an aggressive attitude.
With ski jumping, it's more that you need to have the mindset to it, and then you can just train yourself physically over the years.
It takes between 6 and 8 years to develop an Olympian in ski jumping or Nordic combined. So John Mills is preaching patience.
We hope that Canada will be at the top of the Olympic rung in 2010.
We care. That was the message from demonstrators outside the U.S. Justice Department today, calling for an end to the detention of migrant families at the U.S.-Mexico border. Family detention, family separation. A lot of the debate in recent weeks in the U.S. has been about how to treat asylum seekers, about who deserves asylum. There are any number of reasons to cross that border. For one asylum seeker, a Mexican journalist named Emilio Gutierrez Soto, it was the threat of death. The threat to journalists in Mexico is very real. Last year, according to Reporters Without Borders, it was the deadliest place in the world to report in, ahead of Syria and Iraq. That's not a fluke. Take the 3 most deadly places for journalists over the past 5 years, and it's those 2 Middle Eastern hotspots and Mexico. This year so far, it's number 2 behind Afghanistan. We sought out Gutierrez Soto to get his account of the struggle to avoid becoming one of those statistics.
Fighting his deportation from a U.S. detention center in El Paso, along with his son.
He sought asylum in the U.S. and was summarily denied.
Case, a Mexican journalist has asked for asylum because he says the military has threatened to kill him.
All right, El Paso Processing Center, 15 minutes.
Head southwest on East Yandle Drive toward North St. Frame Street.
Okay, you're the boss. So about a decade ago, Emilio Gutierrez was writing about corruption in the Mexican military, and that's when he was hunted and threatened and attacked by the Mexican military. So it was around that time that he tried to seek asylum in the United States, and his case has been winding its way through the courts ever since. An American judge decided that Emilio should be deported. So Emilio and his son have been in detention here in El Paso since December, and we've been trying to get in. And the final word is that yes, we can, but we can only get audio, not video, which is what this is all about. There's so many questions to ask these two, including, how long do you think you can hang on? And what exactly is likely to happen if you do get sent back to Mexico? We'll see what we get. Hola, Oscar. I'm Adrian. You guys are gonna have Hola, Emilio. 1 hour. Yeah. 1 hour. Okay, thank you. My first question for either one of you, but mostly you, Emilio, is how are you?
Es una experiencia por demás desagradable, en donde las autoridades buscan destruir la autoestima. Yo he pensado que es mejor enfrentar en un momento dado la muerte en México que seguir en este lugar en donde estamos viviendo la espera de la muerte todos los días.
What's it like to hear your dad talk like this?
Well, it was very depressing hearing him talking like that, because we're together, and if he loses, I lose, and so we're both in dangerous if we go back into Mexico.
What was the moment when you first knew in Mexico that you were in big trouble?
La agresión directa de un general en mi contra, después el allanamiento en mi casa, en nuestra casa, después de que vi cómo era vigilado por militares.
Oscar, the decision seemed to be that the judge wasn't sure your dad was a journalist, and then also said that the Mexican government has a program to protect him.
It doesn't work. It's the same government that does that program, so we're running away from the government.
En México no hay protección para los periodistas. La opinión del juez al asegurar que en México podríamos lograr la protección es una locura. A mí me gustaría que pasara un fin de semana en Ciudad Juárez sin protección, para que se dé cuenta de la gravedad y de la irresponsabilidad con la que se condujo al negarnos el asilo.
The longer you stay in here, the longer your son has to stay in here. I mean, at some point, your fight might be hurting him.
Es algo que me llena de dolor, que todos los días lamento. Y espero que algún día me comprenda.
Tu captes un petit?
¿Cómo está? La. ¿Qué es su nombre?
Mío, Luis.
Luis. Luis.
Ernesto.
Ernesto.
Bien.
So, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do?
Yo soldado. Yo americana.
Americana.
Como la migra.
Americano.
Sí, americano.
Not Mexican.
Yo quiero ser chino.
They're actually saying they want to be Americans?
Estamos pobres. Quiero ser chino. Estamos pobres.
Okay, we'll get on that. Okay, thank you so much. Yes. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. I have chosen to specialize in Mexican political asylum, and so what I basically do is try to give refuge to refugees.
As you know, we went in, we spoke with Emilio. This section is just a little bit where he's a bit expressive.
Yo he pensado que es mejor enfrentar el momento dado la muerte en México que seguir en este lugar.
I'm wondering, anything surprise you about that?
It's traumatizing to be locked up when you've not committed a crime, because he is now being persecuted by the American government. This is outright persecution. You know, it's payback for him denouncing Mexico and denouncing the U.S., and there's no other reason why he shouldn't be released. Absolutely none.
I can imagine a number of Americans listening to this saying, A, don't care, B, so what that he's a journalist? What are they not getting?
What they're not getting is that the best and I think only hope for for democracy in Mexico is transparency and accountability. And the one institution that is in the best position to do that is the Mexican press.
But what does that have to do with them, though?
It keeps Mexicans at home. You want to keep Mexicans at home? Help Mexicans stay at home by being able to file complaints and deal with human rights abuses.
Well, and live and work without fear of being killed for it.
Exactly.
What happens to Emilio if he gets deported?
If he goes back home to Chihuahua, where he has his ancestral home, he's dead. They would kill him. He's just another troublemaker that needs to be taken care of.
So to figure out what it's really like for a journalist in Mexico, we're going to head into Juarez. So where we're heading is right to that red X. That's a sculpture right in the middle of Juarez.
Ciudad Juarez, one of the most violent
Several
cities
hundred
in the
people
world.
have been killed there since the beginning of the year.
Line people up against a wall and open fire.
Mexican authorities say new information has surfaced in connection with the deaths of 3 people.
The real problem in the police department right now is corruption.
There are a lot of murdered journalists in Mexico, and their cases go unsolved. So we're going to speak with one of the premier investigative journalists in Mexico. She works for a newspaper called El Diario de Juarez. So Sandra Rodriguez has spent years digging into what and who is behind the violence, and there's a price for that. She left Juarez for a few years after some specific threats, and just there, right by her desk, is a shrine to a fellow reporter killed in the storm of danger here.
Estamos viviendo la espera de la muerte.
He's broken by the detention center right here.
In the case of Emilio, the judge said, "You'll be fine in Mexico because there is a program to protect journalists." I mean, your face immediately just screwed up. What do you make of that?
If he fears to be here, and the only protection he has is this program of the government is like useless. There are a lot of examples of how this program have failed to other journalists, like very specific examples of people killed or threat, etc.
Well, isn't part of the problem, too, that if you're writing about the military and the government, which are so connected, and you're writing about corruption within the two of them, how can you trust those organizations to protect you?
That's the foundation of the fear that Mexico is, I mean, the population is living, because you don't trust authorities. That's the worst scenario, where the police or the people that's supposed to protect you is the people that is scaring you or threatening you, or because you don't know. In this environment, you don't know anything.
What does a threat in Mexico actually for you look like? What does that sound like?
It was something that I was kind of expecting, because I was like testing what can you do, what you cannot do. And I thought that this was particularly dangerous, and they said don't, they sent a message. But I don't like to talk about it because, seriously, I don't like to talk about it.
So you stopped writing about that subject?
That is specific subject. They didn't want names in the stories, specific names. And we kind of knew it, and we did it, not just me. But that is not, seriously, I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
HBH Chicago, final recall.
Esto es una llamada de y pagada por
El Paso Processing Center.
Oscar, it's Adrian. How are you?
Really good, how are you?
Good, thank you. So do you know what the next stage is for you?
You know, the last separators or something, or what's
Hola, Emilio. ¿Cómo está? It's Adrian.
Todo bien.
Are you able to let us know if something happens with your case?
Yo tengo ya sus teléfonos y yo inmediatamente les comunico.
Gracias, muchas gracias, Emilio.
Ok, muchas gracias.
So, Andrew, we tried to find some kind of clarity on Gutierrez Soto's fate from officials. We went to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration, the Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department, all said nope in terms of talking about his case specifically or do any sort of interviews with us.
So, Adrian, where does the case go next?
It's hard to say. You know, we know that a judge decided that really any evidence he had of the threat against him in Mexico wasn't up to snuff, that his fears aren't credible. And so, you know, they're agreeing to him having another hearing. It's probably scheduled for August, but like so much of this case, it's definitely not a sure thing. You can, by the way, find more pictures and more about Emilio's story on our Instagram page at CBC The National.
When television began in Canada in 1952, TV news was largely an afterthought, a low priority.
Stand by, roll film.
CBC Chief News Editor Dan MacArthur worried that TV news might become more show business than news business. Little did he dream that from these beginnings, TV news would become the most powerful instrument of journalism ever known.
Good evening. This is Lorne Green. This week, our cameramen all over the world went to get the news where and when it was happening. Here is what we've selected from the pictures they took. Our first story.
That first story on the first news program was a dandy.
The story of a manhunt.
The Boyd gang had just escaped from Toronto's Don Jail.
Within hours, 2,000 police had begun the hunt, and the unofficial word was shoot to kill. Indochina, unlike Korea, is an unpublicized war, and unlike Korea, an almost forgotten war.
Dan MacArthur wanted the news service to be purely a rewrite operation. He was afraid that having reporters might compromise CBC objectivity, as Peter Stursberg remembers.
He didn't want reporters
course, as war correspondents, that was a thin edge of the wedge in a sense. But he didn't want reporters. And I remember, and then after the war, the only reporters that he would agree to were foreign correspondents.
I can recall some of the early days when if someone called you up on the phone and told you there was something happening locally, or a political meeting or a fire or almost anything, you were under instructions to say to them, would you please call this number at Canadian Press and give them the information because we get our service from CP. It was part of that endeavor to keep the news service on this totally straight and narrow in the perception of politicians and the public.
Don McDonald says MacArthur was almost fearsome in his demands that CBC editors be totally objective in preparing their newscasts.
MacArthur had provided a list of all editors who had certified that they were not members of a political party. And to have to do that illustrates to you what his concerns were and how the steps he had to take to try and resist those pressures.
Covering politicians in Ottawa proved especially challenging for the CBC. One of the first network newsmen in Ottawa was Tom Earle.
Now that the pipeline bill has gone through the House of Commons.
Well, it's a great relief. We've had 3 weeks of debate, including the worst obstruction that I've ever seen in my experience in the House of Commons.
You weren't allowed in the press gallery. Toward the end, before we were allowed to actually join in 1959, we were given certain privileges by the Speaker, like being allowed to sit in the diplomatic gallery and take notes. And you could attend press gallery press conferences, providing you didn't ask any questions, because you weren't a real newspaper man, or wire service man, you were radio TV, which was airy-fairy.
Canadian election campaigns in the year 1957 were surrounded by some trappings that are new in Canadian election campaigns: dome cars and television.
Put your back into it and let your mind go. You gotta run right through it and make my mind go crazy.
On the National tonight, heavy machinery is now part of the search for a youth soccer team believed to be trapped in a cave in northern Thailand. Workers are drilling holes in the side and the top of the mountain, trying to drain water out and also create another way out. Crews from the US and UK are also chipping in. The 12 boys and their coach have been missing since Saturday. Ottawa is trying to make it easier to catch people who point lasers at airplanes. It's already a federal offense to do that, but it can be difficult to prosecute. So today, the government announced an outright ban on having a high-powered laser on you if you're out and about. It applies to people within 10 kilometers of an airport or heliport, or anywhere within Greater Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. So if police see someone so much as holding a laser in a restricted zone, they can issue a fine up to $5,000 right on the spot. The Canadian government is poised to collect a lot more information on people who leave the country. Right now, border agents only know when someone enters Canada, but Bill C-21 would change that. It would allow Ottawa to keep track of how long someone is outside the country, information that could be used for a whole bunch of things, like clawing back certain benefits if they've been away too long, or ensuring prospective citizens meet residency requirements. The data will also be shared with U.S. government agencies. The bill has passed the House and is heading to the Senate.
We try not to cancel things. We'll either try to maybe shorten the show or even push it back to a later hour.
And organizers of the Canada Day concert in Ottawa are looking at contingency plans ahead of this weekend's extreme heat wave. Sunday's forecast calls for a high of 35 degrees in the capital, and the humidity will make it feel more like 45 degrees. Thousands are expected to turn out for those festivities on Parliament Hill. Well, if you've ever been part of rush hour in an urban center, you've seen it. Cyclists and drivers at each other's throats. But a new poll suggests who gets blamed depends on who you ask. 70% of cyclists fault drivers, while 67% of drivers blame cyclists. Age turns out to be a factor too. More than half of younger people, who are also more likely to be cyclists, blame drivers, while 3/4 of older Canadians blame cyclists. Surprise, surprise, right? It's always someone else's fault, but maybe hearing the other side out could go a long way in easing the animosity and improving commutes. So we took our red chair to Vancouver today to give cyclists and motorists their say.
Okay, you want to open it? So the question is, who is more of a hazard on the roads?
Cyclists or drivers?
I'm mixed on this because cyclists don't always stop at stop signs. They don't always abide the rules of the road. But at the same time, drivers have to watch out for the cyclists, and they don't always stop at stop signs.
It definitely would be drivers. As a cyclist, I no longer ride my bike on a main street because it's just a danger zone. I mean, there's totally so many people that I've encountered as a pedestrian or cyclist walking across my light, doing what I'm supposed to do, and a driver interjects, and it's like an oopsie matter, like, oh, I didn't see you there.
I think cyclists are quite a hazard on the road. When you look at a four-way stop and you see a cyclist just burn right through without regard to the stop sign, it puts danger to just not only the pedestrians, but to cars and to everyone else.
That's tricky. I think it depends on the actual driver. I've seen hazardous people in both categories.
It's mainly a concern where the driver is actually going to impact and cause more damage to a cyclist than the other way around. Like, how much damage can a cyclist do to your car? So I would definitely say the driver.
No one answer, it's both.
Be safe out there.
Still ahead on the National, school is out for kids across the country, and that means the seemingly endless run of summer days has begun. We dropped by a few schools to see how they feel about it. Spoiler alert, the excitement factor is pretty high. And we'll also introduce you to one Edmonton elementary school principal who went above and beyond to keep a promise to his students. That is in our moment of the day. And remember, you can get a little bit of the National in your inbox earlier in the day. Every weekday, the National Today goes deep on several notable stories and explores stories you might have missed. In today's newsletter, tracking a shocking new weapon of choice in crimes across the country, bear spray. Seriously. Subscribe at cbcnews.ca/The National.
My search wasn't to sort of find my father. It wasn't this kind of Jedi-esque Star Wars situation. It was more, you know, as you get older, you want to find out a little bit more about kind of if something bad's going to happen genetically, or if you've got something wrong with you, or if there's some kind of illness. You know, straight off the bat, a real close connection, somebody I can link to, someone who you can find on social media, and someone you can say, hey, I think we're quite closely related, you know?
Uncle Brian, the amazing. I had got a phone call from my Uncle Brian asking me if I knew this person. He was trying to add him on Facebook. And he showed me his Facebook, and he showed me this friend request, and he's like, do we know this guy? Who is this guy? I kind of looked at his picture, and I thought he did really kind of look like us.
It was in Ottawa, so that was me. And so I would have been 19 at the time. It was the disco era, come on. Need I say more? Oh, I thought, oh my God, this is my kid, and he has a British accent.
and it happened to be my 90th birthday party, and he had traveled from England.
Going to my grandmother's house, it was like the Matrix, where you go into the Oracle. The smell of cooking and kind of, family and people around, and it was like, it was that moment of, oh, okay, this has always been here, and this is always this kind of forever thing.
Don't let me forget this very moment.
Of course, it's bittersweet because we lost Brian this year, but we had this new young man come into the family. So the year has been difficult.
It's the call of the wild, the expanse of open air. It's the land, the grit beneath our fingernails. It's picking ourselves up by the bootstraps long after the sun has set. We all have a little Western spirit in us, which is why we celebrate the Calgary Stampede.
I've been told a lot that I have pretty eyes.
I would love for you to stay. I'm a family here.
I don't know what's going on with Sam. Sometimes he just seems blank.
Oh, she's still a very handsome woman, and soon to be a very rich widow.
여보! What's Netflix and that chill?
Sex.
How you know that?
Everybody know that.
I don't know that.
You is old. Young people talk. I listen, I learn.
And I told her.
Well, it's official. School's out for kids across Canada, kicking off 2 months of fun and adventure. We visited a few schools across the country to gauge the excitement today, and their enthusiasm is hands down our moment of the day.
Awesome.
Kids across Toronto are understandably over the moon, even if some of them are still a little reluctant to leave the schoolyard. Go home already.
We're going to vacation.
Meanwhile, in Winnipeg, the students might be excited, but some teachers almost seem kind of sad.
It's also a little bit bittersweet because I'm going to be missing them very much as well.
But it is one elementary school in Edmonton that wins our Last Day of School prize. See, Principal Jason Dolezal made a deal with his students about a reading assignment this past year. We'll let him explain.
We ended up setting a large goal in the school to have a combined 40,000 nights of reading. And we, part of the incentive for the goal was to, if we reached that goal, I promised I would kiss a goat.
And when they came through, Dolezal was true to his word. He slapped on some ravishing red lipstick and planted a big one right on that gorgeous goat. The kids barely batted an eye. Just kidding, they went nuts.
Poor goat. That's what I have to say about that. So Adrian, I was digging into this, and apparently the goat wasn't the only animal there on the last day. Apparently the school had a whole petting zoo's worth of animals there, including a giant pig. So if you ask me, the principal got off lucky, because if the goat was sick or otherwise had an off day, you know who was subbing in, right?
Well, okay, I don't know how you'd know if the goat was sick, but I have no recall of farm animals involved in the last days of school. But what I do remember is that there is no finer moment than the last 10 seconds before the last bell of the year. And you know that paradise is around the corner. And I don't care how old you are, that moment never leaves you.
Sure
That
enough.
is The National for Thursday, June 28th. School is out. Good night.
Good night.